Okay, we're good? Okay.
We are good.
All right, welcome everyone. As a reminder that these meetings are live streamed and can be watched go to the Town of Parry Sound website at www.parrysound.ca. I'd like to also acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty, and also the waterways traveled by the Métis of this particular region. Prior to the open meeting, council met for a closed session, which was moved by Councillor Backman, seconded by Councillor McCann, pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 as amended. Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moved to meeting close to the public in order to address matters pertaining to C, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land for municipal or local board purposes, proposed property exchange, and K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, proposed property exchange, and Big Sound Marina Operators Agreement. Meeting was held. May I have a mover and seconder for the agenda? Councillor Borneman and Councillor Keith, that the council agenda for August 10th, 2021 be approved as circulated. Any changes, additions? No. Okay. Anyone opposed to the passing of that resolution? No one is, so that's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? No. Okay. May I have a mover and seconder for the minutes? Councillor McCann, Councillor Burden, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held July 20th, 2021 be approved as circulated. Any discussion or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, anyone opposed to the passing of that resolution? Nope, that's carried then. Questions of staff? Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. For Mr. Cairns, my recollection is that there was a budget in this year's budget for paving. I haven't seen any of that started yet, Mr. Cairns. I'm wondering when we might see some sign of that. I realize contractors are busy and all of that stuff, but we've been fortunate in the past to maybe do some of that work early in the season so citizens benefit from it through the year.
Certainly, through your worship. So in fact, some of it has started, mostly the patching around town on some of the breaks that we've had. So that's the initial part of the paving, and the larger paving projects will be forthcoming. So again, it's coordinating with, I hate to keep referring back to it, but I think the industry-wide, it's been a bit problematic over the last couple of years. Obviously, trying to schedule things, projects got pushed back, but we will be moving forward with the larger paving projects. One of the things we're looking at is hopefully taking advantage of some new technologies that will help us minimize greenhouse gas emissions, as well as improving some of the asphalt traveled surfaces. So that's some of the things we're looking at.
Thank you.
Good. Councillor Keith, and then Councillor McCann.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Cairns, I had occasion to be walking over on the sidewalk of Cascade Street at the Cascade Bridge area, and I noticed that there were some, it seemed like very basic repair, but after walking on it, it seemed to me like there was a lot to be desired. It wasn't very solid. Is there somebody to inspect like that if they're just putting in a little bit of cement to try to make things a little better? Because it doesn't seem to be the best. That's my first question.
Certainly, through your worship. So the product is actually not just concrete. It's a two-part mix. So it's a different product with a higher bond strength. that staff are trying to use in an attempt to solve some of our cracking issues and trip hazards. So the finish has been a bit challenging to work with, and the temperatures. In speaking with the staff, we are still experimenting with the best mix to allow them enough time to work with the product as it's down. I think what we're going to see is some of those rougher areas, they don't present a trip hazard. They're perhaps not as smooth as the rest of the sidewalk, but I think over time we're going to see that rectify itself. But they've had some issues with the extreme temperatures. It's actually set up an awful lot quicker than was anticipated. So we should be getting better with those finishes, but it is a two-part mix. It's not just simply concrete. It's actually very similar to, there's one section on the town dock that was redone in this same product, very near the entrance to the town dock itself, which has, from my understanding, held up quite well over quite a number of years. So it is anticipated to be a more permanent repair in some of those trip hazard areas.
So my response to that before my next question is, I hope that somebody will take a further inspection on that sidewalk there, Cascade Bridge, because personally, I think it is, if you don't have real good mobility and you're using that sidewalk there, I can see somebody maybe accidentally having a little trip. And in that area, they kind of go head first into the vehicles. So I would hope there can be somebody take a look at that. That's my one comment. And I'm sure that's probably a yes.
Certainly that's something we can do. And if we need to take some further measures to ensure that that's a much smoother transition between those areas, we can do that as well.
Sure. Thank you. And the other question is, again, it has to do with the old town beach. Is there going to be, like where we are for COVID-19 now, is there going to be any sort of Johnny on the spot for the remainder of this season? I noticed that now we have people going into the bushes to change their clothes, and I'm sure that it's just not changing their clothes. If you gotta go, you gotta go. So can you advise me what the situation would be there, Mr. Cairns? Thanks.
Certainly, through your worship. That's certainly something we can take a look at. Obviously, we're seeing much higher volumes of people this year than last. So I'll suggest that we'll have that discussion internally and see what we can come up with for the remainder of, September tends to remain a fairly warm month, and we may see that use continue. So we can certainly take a look at getting something in there if we're able to.
Councillor McCann.
Thanks. Yeah, again for Mr. Cairns. On the hot seat tonight, I guess, is two questions. Where are we with the poison ivy in town in terms of eradicating it? And also, in some parts of town, there are orange flags that look like the little yellow flags that you see around the natural gas lines, but these ones are orange flags that are stuck on the ground. And there's a number of them, at least on Queen and Spruce Street area. Can you tell me what they're about, and again, where we're standing right now with poison ivy? Or where we hope not to be standing on poison ivy.
Certainly, through your worship. So our plans are to spray the known areas of poison ivy. Unfortunately, the weather hasn't been overly cooperative. We have to have the right weather conditions, wind, rain, moisture, all those things. So we are, hopefully the weather will cooperate in the next short term. I'm not sure that the rest of this week looks good, but then we're optimistic that next week we'll be able to fit it in amongst our varying weather patterns. Now, as far as the flags go, I'm not particularly, I don't have particular knowledge of that location, but what I can say is there is a lot of work going on around town by contractors. You'll see an awful lot of locate type markings on the ground. Occasionally the flags are used. The orange tends to be telecommunications or potentially hydro markings when their underground utilities are being marked for excavation purposes. So right now, Bell Canada has a fairly large program going on in terms of, I believe it's a fiber program going on around town. And their contractor, VistaCare, is the actual contractor doing the work. So there's a high probability, if you're talking about ground mounted on a flag, sort of orange markings, that's what it relates to.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Councillor Backman.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question this evening is for Mr. Cairns. Just in regards to, I'd like to thank you first and foremost for the application of the paint to the skate park. I hadn't been down there. I was away for a couple of weeks, and after driving by the other day, I was very happy to see that, and I did receive some feedback from many users that the type of paint selected for that has made an extreme difference. And so my question then would be, based on some of the feedback that we've received in the last year about some of the other safety measures to take at the skate park, as well as lighting, etc., are there any plans to do any future maintenance to that area?
Certainly, through Your Worship. I'm certainly not going to take credit for the work that was done there. We'll give all the credit where it's due to staff for the work that was done. And as a matter of fact, I did go over there on a rainy day and attempted to walk up the ramp, not all the way, mind you, but I was curious to see how it performed as well. So I was quite amazed. I stayed upright, so I think it's doing what it's supposed to do. Certainly, I think some of those suggestions are things that we're going to have to take a closer look at in terms of ability to accomplish. I think some of them had to do with CCTV perhaps. And I think we need to have a bigger conversation about that and certainly include it in a budget item because it's to be a functional system. I think we need to have that discussion internally, but perhaps also with our external partners, whether it's the OPP, those kinds of enforcement folks, and get some advice on if that's something we should be pursuing. The lighting, certainly we can take a look at what improvements may need to happen over there, and we can certainly discuss that with Lakeland in terms of the infrastructure that's available.
Oh, you got another one?
Just as a follow-up, Your Worship, in regards to the, I guess, the blacktop that is there in the ground, do we ever have from jobs that we are doing with pavement? I've heard rumblings of some kind of that we may have some from in the past for bike paths, etc. And I was just wondering, is there ever a potential to maybe look at where the infrastructure is? You may have noticed how it has embedded down and kind of the heat on that and is melted. And I'm just wondering if there's a way that, because one of the comments I did receive from the children there is that when they go down, but now they hit this big rivet area there because it has sunken in. And I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity for us to, you know, if that's an easy fix or if that's something we'd have to look at in the budget.
Through Your Worship, I would suggest that that's something we would be better to take a closer look at, understand what's happening and plan for it. Trying to do an overlay on the asphalt sometimes becomes problematic, and it's if there is leftover, and I hope there is not, you know, if we're doing a significant paving project, we like to be as close as possible in the estimates. So sometimes it's difficult to ensure that you have enough to make an effective repair. So that's certainly something we can take a look at. I didn't notice that, but we'll certainly take another look at that and see if there's something we can come up with that's relatively simple, but it may end up being a budget item as well.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Nope. Okay. Oh, correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Yes, Your Worship, there are just a couple items of correspondence. The first is from Mr. Eric McIntyre, He wrote with concerns about the no parking signs and the prohibition on parking at the Wabano Beach boat launch with the signs next to the Coast Guard there. He has requested, he got a ticket, and he has requested that the town rescind the no parking regulation. Subsequent to this letter, he did meet with the Director of Development and Protective Services about the issue, and although doesn't agree particularly with the town's position, he is not taking any further action on that, and thanks the town and the director for meeting. That was a follow-up letter. As I said, it was circulated to members of council, but arrived after the circulation of the agenda. And the second item is from the Whitestone municipality. They passed a resolution similar to one that the town passed. In fact, it was endorsing the town's resolution regarding the cost-sharing formula for the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit. A number of those resolutions have been coming in from different municipalities. And that is correspondence.
Thank you. No deputations, so we'll go to reports. I'll start at the first one on the left of the screen here for me, and that's Councillor Burden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very brief report this evening. The only meeting I've attended since the last council meeting was earlier this evening, a meeting of the Industrial Park Board. We had a presentation by a pair of partners in an industry that's looking to purchase a couple of lots in the park. And this evening, the board approved that purchase. So I'm not going to say any more as far as who it is until things are a little more settled with the legal issues and so on. But it's continuing to move on nicely up there and lots of things happening. Otherwise, again, I've taken part in the Saturday morning attendance to the in-ground gardens on the main street in downtown. And again, want to thank the volunteers that come out and do that, and particularly Bernice Anderson, who heads that party up and takes it very seriously and doing a wonderful job. While we're on that topic, I took a ride up to the Tower Hill a few days ago to have a look at the gardens up there, and they're spectacular. And any of us who haven't seen them should go up and have a look. And I want to thank the Horticultural Society for the wonderful job they're doing up there again this year. They have in the past too. They get better every year, and it's wonderful. And now that the tower is open again, all the more reason to go up there and have a look around. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, and public. One meeting to report on. Thursday evening, July 22nd, I attended the West Parry Sound District Museum monthly board meeting electronically by Zoom. We appointed and welcomed a new board member. His name is Gerald Porter, and we're pleased to have him on board. I'm also pleased to announce that since July 21st, the museum has been open Wednesday through Saturday. It continues to be so from 11 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. Staff does need to reserve the right to close the museum an hour prior to the listed closing time, should it be necessary. With limited staff and with all kinds of moving targets, one never knows for sure what might come up. So, and also the E. Roy Smith building is, or I'm hearing a buzz from something somewhere. Sorry. The E. Roy Smith Permanent Gallery is currently closed due to ongoing renovations. The model train creator, the fellow that put it together and donated it, was on site a few weeks ago to complete its construction and train our staff on its operation. It's more complex than you might initially think. Financial reports were received. We had a discussion about our 10-year vision and about a mindset that we all need to have as we move forward, looking at what it's going to take for planning and commitment, particularly on the part of municipal reps as we come back to our respective councils with looking for some long-term commitments for support in that regard. I guess basically the only other thing to suggest from the meeting was that we have some modifications to our facility rental policy. And we have targeted Thursday, July 23rd as the date for our annual general meeting. At this point, it's looking like it's going to be electronic. And that's and I'm just to follow up on Council Burton's comment with regards to the gardens downtown. They were looking really spectacular, very colorful, very lush. So congratulations to everyone with that. And that is my report.
Thank you. Councillor Keith.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff, and the public. I've only one meeting that I attended. That was the Parry Sound Area Planning Board. Business as usual. A number of applications were approved. Majority were in other municipalities, and a couple were deferred. Otherwise, business as usual. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Backman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. My weeks since last council has been very quiet, other than this evening. As Councillor Burton had noted that I was in attendance to our Industrial Park Board meeting, and it's wonderful to see how quickly that we've recently taken. There has been a lot of interest and a lot of sales of property, and based on discussions with the board, I am very excited to see what we are going to be doing to improve and to make more lands available in the near future. And with what we've seen recently over the last year and a half, I'm confident that more property sales will be happening in the future as well. I'd like to say kudos to everyone who is doing all the work with the beautification within the community. It really does look fantastic. Everywhere you drive, the flowers, I mean, you know, something so simple, yes, costly, but the time and effort that everyone puts into maintaining this is just really adds to such a beautiful place that we live. So I hope that everyone has had an enjoyable summer and continues as we go in the last few weeks of August. So that is my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. On the 27th of July, I attended a strat planning meeting at the airport. What will we look like in 5, 10, and 15 years? The property is nearing full build out in some respects. We need to be looking forward. On the 22nd, along with Board Chair Lynn Gregory, I attended a meeting with the Life Lease residents. That matters on this evening's agenda, and I'll speak to it then. The Park Board meeting has been discussed. I'd only add that, you know, for many years, Mr. Mayor, you're well aware of this, for many years, the industrial park was referred to as a white elephant. It was a weak sister, and it was frankly a financial draw on area municipalities. We now have 2 service lots left for sale. I want to, you know, in addition to the excitement about selling more lots tonight, I want to thank Mr. Hunt, our park manager. He's made application through FedNor to service an additional 22 lots up there, which is hopefully will be needed and allow for a good deal of additional expansion in the not too distant future. And that's my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that is good news, and certainly hoping that those lots can be developed or have services put in and that they sell as well. So there is a push north, and we just need to be ready and move with it. For my report, so council, staff, and public, July 29th, I attended an AMO executive meeting. July 22nd, I was part of a recording session to do a session on housing for the AMO conference, which I have to chair. August 5th was the pre-meeting for the AMO MOU meeting, and then the afternoon, the meeting with the province. And as a reminder, August 21st to the 25th is the AMO conference. Everything will be virtual again this year. The first 2 days are meetings for the board, and then the main conference starts on the 23rd. And the town has some delegations with ministries that hopefully we can get our voice in there and make sure that we're heard. So that's my report. And now we'll go to the agenda. We have an item from closed that was brought forward. It's a bylaw, and it's moved by Councillor Burden and seconded by Councillor Borneman. The bylaw number 2021-7160 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Massasauga Management Company Incorporated for the operation of Big Sound Marina and Town Dock be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of the second and third readings? Yes, that's carried as well. Moved by Councillor Burden, seconded by Councillor Borneman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Is there any discussion? No. Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? Councillor Borneman, is that your hand waving there? You're muted.
Thank you. I just wanted to commend staff for putting this out there and seeking bids from others before proceeding down this path. This wasn't, you know, as it turns out, there were no other bidders for the project. So this is a direction that we have really no alternative to pursue other than running it ourselves. And we've decided previously that's not necessarily a very good plan.
Yes. So no one's opposed to the passing of that bylaw, correct? Okay, that's carried then. Next is 941, which is moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor McCann. The council accept the bid from Municipal Sewer Services Incorporated in the amount of $46,394.47, HST included, for sewer flushing and cleaning of approximately 22,193 meters of sanitary sewer, this being the lowest of 2 bids received. That's about $2 a meter. Anyway, any discussion? Councillor McCann.
I would just ask Mr. Kearns what the process involves here. How is it compared to flushing storm sewers, for instance?
Certainly, through your worship. So storm sewer outlets typically are to natural water courses where, and typically they contain only rainwater and that sort of thing. So our sanitary sewer flushing, this is part of an annual program that the town does. We are looking at a little bit more in terms of quantity this year in an attempt to shorten the duration between. Previously, the town had done this on a 5-year cycle to get through the total volume of sanitary sewer in town, and staff have been monitoring that process. So this actually will complete about 65% of our total volume this year. And the idea is we're going to take a look at what the results of this are. So there are certain areas that the gravity sewers don't necessarily have the same slope all over town. So certain areas tend to be a little bit more problematic in terms of settlement and potential blockage. So the idea of this program is to ensure that the sanitary sewage doesn't become problematic and flows to our lift stations as necessary. So typically we don't embark on a contractor-based storm sewer flushing. We do that internally. We have the vac truck that you'll see around town, the large white truck with the tank on the back that has a nozzle on it. And so that is used for our storm sewer flushing around town. the sanitary flushing tends to be a little bit more delicate, we'll say, in certain circumstances and time consuming. So the use of a contractor allows us to be much more efficient in working our way through town quickly.
That sounds good. I think you answered another question I had, which you spoke about areas in which things just sort of settle. And I just wondered how much clogging, builds up after a while, and how serious it does become. And so that when we see these big trucks around town, we know that they're doing a vital job. Keep things flushing.
Certainly, and actually along that line, if I can add, we would encourage folks to use the sanitary sewers for what they're intended. Flushable wipes are not in fact flushable for the most part. They do not dissolve. They cause all sorts of problems within sanitary sewer systems, and we're seeing it all over the place, especially since COVID arose. There was a major increase in the use of. They will clog our pumps, they will clog our pipes, and they will cause issues. So it's not necessarily a settlement. Sometimes that does occur, but it's improper use, whether it be fats, oils, and greases put down the sanit. That's not where they belong either. And the same as the flushable wipes. So I just thought I'd take that opportunity.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
So the message is don't flush the wipes. Councillor Bachman and then Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is in regards to this is, have we used this company before?
To my knowledge, yes, Municipal Sewer Services has performed work for us in the past.
Okay, and just as a follow-up, in regards to the usage of the different products, do we have anywhere within your budget to educate people, provide education to people on, just proper usage? I know it's common sense, you think, but again, I'm just wondering if there's ways that we can reach out to our ratepayers, either through a monthly newsletter or some type that can provide this type of information, so that it's, and I'm just wondering if that's something that might be part of your budget.
Through your worship, I'm going to suggest that we don't have a specific communications budget for that, but I think we have some effective messaging from a lot of our industry associations that we can take advantage of. Whether we get them out through social media, I can certainly talk to finance staff and see if there's an opportunity in billings, that sort of thing, perhaps to include some different messaging. That may be an opportunity for us to take advantage of a process that we already have in place. But certainly we can probably become a little more proactive in that messaging through social media and the website and Twitter and Facebook and that sort of thing.
I think the newsletter, again, being monthly distributed, we have a system, I believe, that we can utilize. I think when it's delivered right to people's inboxes, that can be as well very effective. So just to note. Thank you very much.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Cairns, two things. Yes, I would agree with some of the comments that Councillor Bachman just mentioned, because certainly education is easy to carry around, but it takes a long time to get it through one's cognitive ability, shall we say. But what I'm also, and certainly this would be proactive, certainly what is being suggested here is being very proactive. So the two go together. But in addition to that, I'm wondering if this is approved of tonight, when would this flushing occur? And what length of time is it anticipated it would be happening? And three, because it's it's 65% of the town's system, how will residents know that this is happening? Thank you.
Certainly, through your worship. So I am not sure of the exact timeline. My guess is that it would take somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks to complete, depending on again, weather conditions, certainly that can have an impact on how quickly the work can proceed. So we do place notices, I believe, in the newspaper typically, as well as our website, informing the public of this work on an annual basis. So we would utilize the same methods that we normally do during this annual program. This one just happens to be a bit more extensive than normal.
My follow-up, can we assume this will be done by late September? Would that be fair?
Yes, that would be my hope. We would like to proceed as soon as possible after approval. So we would certainly be in touch with the company as soon as we can, should this pass tonight.
Anyone else? Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? No, it's carried then. Okay, moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Keith. Whereas years of research confirms the benefits of high-quality childcare for young children's intellectual, emotional, social, and physical development and later life outcomes. And whereas childcare promotes the well-being of children and responds to the needs of parents and the broader community by supporting quality of life so that citizens can fully participate in and contribute to the economic and social life of their community. And whereas trained, knowledgeable early childhood educators and childcare staff are the key to quality in early learning and childcare programs and champions for children. Therefore, be resolved that October 21st, 2021 be designated the 21st Annual Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day in recognition of the education, dedication, and commitment of childcare workers to children, their families, and the quality of life of the community. Any discussion? No. Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? No, it's carried then. Okay. Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor McCann, that bylaw number 2021-7154, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Corporation of the Village of South River and the Township of Mackar for the use and occupation of the EMS base located at 203 Highway, number 203 Highway 124 South River be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And that's carried. All members in favor have the second and third readings. That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor McCann, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor McCann?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering about the reading here. Maybe Chief Thompson can explain. Just to authorize the execution of an agreement between the corporations of the Village of South River and the Township of Mackar. How does Parry Sound come into that? I know that is it because EMS oversees this catchment area, or what is the legality of that?
You must be having some connection issues.
Seems that way, yeah.
There we are.
I
Chief.
apologize. Had some technical difficulties in my office.
Did you hear the question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, absolutely. I did hear the question.
Okay.
So the town of Parry Sound oversees land ambulance for the district of Parry Sound, and we have the 7 stations throughout the entire district. And so we sign leases for all of those. What you're seeing here in the bylaws is a 3-way agreement because the Township of Mackar and the Village of South River both are co-owners of that particular property. And we are the third party in that because we sign on behalf of EMS as the delivery agents for the entire district. So that's why it's a three-party agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Nope. Okay. Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? Nope. That's good. Thanks, Chief Thompson, for negotiating that. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Burden, that bylaw number 2021-7155 being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 470 Joseph Street, Brandy Clement on behalf of Beatrice Assessment Management Incorporated, Parry Sound Mall, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor Keith, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps Mr. Algie could, this is important. It certainly speaks to our housing needs. Perhaps for the public's benefit, Mr. Algie could explain exactly what's happening here.
Certainly. Through your worship, this is both an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment that are being processed at the same time. The intent is to change the property from a primarily commercial designation to permit to more residential as well as commercial. So a classic mixed use proposal. What brought it about was over time, they were allowed to do quite a bit of residential development as of right within the existing zone provisions. But within the past year, they went to sever the lot in half into two separate buildings, which came out after the fact. And when that happened, the one building was almost all residential. So it was hard to look at it as a commercial designation anymore. And it triggered this official plan amendment to say, hey, it's okay, it's a great idea, but we just have to make sure the policy catches up to the vision and what they'd like to do on the ground. So moving forward, this will give them much more flexibility. It meets what they're doing on the property much more accurately than the previous policy set as well.
Great, thank you very much.
Anyone else? No? Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No, that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Burden, that bylaw number 2021-7156 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2004-4653, the zoning bylaw as amended for rezoning application Z2106-70 Joseph Street, Brandy Clement on behalf of Beatrice Assessment Management Incorporated, Parry Sound Mall, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And that's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman and second by Councillor McCann, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. I think this is, again, Mr. Algie, clean up from the other one as well.
That is correct.
Yeah.
It's this is the zoning bylaw which implements the official plan amendment.
Right. Okay. Is anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No, that's carried then. Thank you. Okay. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Burden, that bylaw number 2021-7159 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2004-4653, the zoning bylaw as amended for Z21-09-106 William Street, Barnes, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third reading? Carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
So I'm looking at the staff recommendation on this. One, staff is suggesting to council that we not approve this rezoning. I agree with staff. Are we voting against this one then, or are we saying yes to a negative in this case? Or no to a, I'm sorry, we're saying no to a positive in this case.
Mr. Elgin.
Through your worship, the way the Planning Act is set up, it's you bring forward the applicant's request. So they have made this request of to permit this smaller lot to be created. I'm recommending that the bylaw or the request be defeated. So if you agree with staff, you would defeat the bylaw. But if you agree with the applicant, you would pass the bylaw. I hope that's clear enough.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? I'm going to make a comment. Who's deputy right at the moment? Roger. Okay, Councillor Burden. All right, I'm going to let you take the chair for a second. I understand staff's comments, that sort of thing, but I look at the neighborhood, I look at the size of some of the houses that are there, I look at the size of some of the lots. And quite frankly, that has been in residential use for many, many, many years. And I don't see that as an issue moving forward for somebody that's trying to get a starter home that might like to purchase into the market and try and do that. So I certainly, I agree with supporting the actual bylaw and allowing this to happen. I think we're going to see more of it in the future. We're going to see small people trying to move smaller lots that are lots that might be larger, but breaking them up into 2 or 3 possible smaller lots so that smaller homes can be built so that people wanting a starter home can buy into it. So I'm going to ask for a recorded vote on this when it comes through, because I just think this is something that's going to happen in the future, and I don't have an issue with it. Councillor Bachman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I've been really looking at this issue and doing a lot of research, and through my travels this year and listening to the feedback from the community. And one of the comments that I heard was about the size of space of yards people want. I walked through Winnipeg for several weeks, and I was surprised at how many people filled their yard with rocks just so they don't cut grass. And it wasn't about the green space anymore. It was about water management. And I think that we also do see the need for people don't want large homes anymore. And we're seeing this all across the world. There is a need for, smaller units. We've seen this in the newest build in the mall. They actually have bachelor apartments, which really are essentially one rooms with no bedrooms. I don't know too many of these type of units that aren't outside of a motel hotel facility. So I do see the diversity of housing and us growing to, I do hope that we do grow to new ways of development, whether that is smaller lots, but I think that we're seeing, obviously the market can't bear too much more. And if we're going to, if we don't start providing incentives and solutions for the housing crisis that we're going through, I'm concerned that many of our commercial business owners will need to move out in the future because they aren't getting staff, because there is no place for people to live. And that would be very hard on our economy. So I do see the need to figure out solutions. And, as much I've always lived in the Hillcrest area for the 20 years, anytime I've lived in the town of Parry Sound. And, there are, again, smaller lots within Hillcrest, and a lot of those houses are right, there's very little frontage. So I think that there will be occupancy for the right person if something in that nature is built on that property. So I would support you with this decision, Mayor McGarvey.
Any other comments, Councillor McCann?
Well, normally I would agree with the comments that have been made by Mr. Mayor and Councillor Backman. I've looked at this quite seriously, and I really, I think staff pointed out some very good issues. I think that the lot would be extremely small, and I really do tend to side with staff on this one. But that's my opinion.
Yep, that's yours. Any other comments from anyone else? No? Okay, Ms. Johnson.
Yes, Your Worship, calling for a recorded vote. I'll take it in alphabetical order with councillors first. Councillor Backman.
Yes, I support this.
Councillor Borneman.
Yes.
Councillor Burden.
Yes.
Councillor Keith.
Yes.
Councillor McCann.
No.
And Mayor McGarvey.
Yes.
And Councillor Horn is absent this evening. The bylaw passes 5-1.
Okay, thank you. That is carried. Okay. Item 10.4.1, moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Backman. The bylaw number 2021-7157 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with ICLEI, local government for sustainability for the advancing adaptation, risk, and vulnerability assessment project for a 9-month training period be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Backman, second by Councillor McCann, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. Anyone? Councillor McCann?
Well, I think we should let Mr. Penger have an opportunity to speak to this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to. It's a really great opportunity to take on this training program. I wouldn't say it's a course per se. In fact, there was an intake meeting earlier today where we walked through what would be covered. It's more of a journey for our corporation, as well as the other partners within the IceCap Collaborative, municipalities and First Nations included. It is truly to set the track for milestones 2 and 3 of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Partners for Climate Protection Program, to begin to target, what does adaptation mean to the town and the surrounding municipalities. There's a pretty good write-up on worldwildlife.org about what is adaptation, and often it's confused with mitigation. So I'm just going to read a real brief paragraph here that I think will provide maybe a bit of clarity and certainly some background. So climate change mitigation means avoiding and reducing emissions of heat-trapping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere to prevent the planet from warming to more extreme temperatures. Climate change adaptation means altering our behaviors, systems, and in some cases, ways of life to protect our families, our economies, and the environment in which we live from the impacts of climate change. So essentially, we need to do both sides of it. And to take that on, we need to build some capacity, build some knowledge. And as we build that internally, we need to share that externally through staff, through the public in general, and bring it all back together through the IceCap Collaborative to have a well-represented, actionable, and meaningful climate action plan for the region.
Great, thanks. I think I've learned something tonight.
Anything else? Anyone else? Questions, comments? No? Anyone opposed then to the passing of this bylaw? No, that's carried then. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Backman, that bylaw number 2021-7158 being a bylaw to execute an agreement with Nipissing Parry Sound Student Transportation Services for the provision of a school bus transfer site at the Kinsman Park be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third reading? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Backman, second by Councillor Keith, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor McCann?
I guess I would just ask Ms. McNamara, what changes, do I assume that the buses that are normally parked down next to or in the vicinity of Yvonne Williams Park will now be at the Kinsman Park? Is that basically what's happening here?
Through your worship, no, Councillor McCann, in short, no. This is something different and totally in its entirety. So this is an ongoing agreement that the town's had with the Student Transportation Consortium for many years. So this is with the student exchange place for all the buses, the kids transfer, all that sort of stuff. It has been going on at the Kinsman Park since I believe it was 2007. So this is something totally, complete, different, separate.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? Nope, that's carried. Okay. I'm gonna have to ask Ms. Johnson, this next bylaw, which is the one that's been postponed a couple of times, am I starting brand new?
No, Mayor McGarvey, this was in the final readings.
Yeah.
It's
so,
already had
okay.
its first reading and was carried, and it was postponed at the last two meetings. Sorry, the last meeting at its second.
I just noticed you had a clean cover page, and I just wanted to double check just in case, but I think that's because the other one's kind of messed up at the moment.
Yes.
Okay, all right, good enough. All right, so this was the one being a bylaw to return the management of the 101 long-term care beds to the Ministry of Long-Term Care to be relocated into a campus of care at West Parry Sound Health Center. So yes, so it is up for discussion. There was an amendment made at the last meeting as well. So Councillor Borneman, do you have anything you want to add to this, or Councillor McCann?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I want to advise council that as of today's date, 5 of the 8 partner municipalities have now passed this bylaw, those being McMurtry, Monteith, McDougall, McKellar, Seguin, and Whitestone. It is on the agenda for both Carling and the Archipelago later this month. As I reported earlier, Board Chair Lynn Gregory and I met with the Life Lease residents on July 22nd. When they first heard about this through local media and whatnot, I think they were shocked, to say the least, when they heard what we were up to, that this is basically a concept at this point, trying to open the conversation with the province with respect to securing more and better beds in the area. They were largely supportive. Several residents there had visited other campuses of care in other communities and spoke highly of the concept. The only promise that we made to the residents is the same as I would make to council, that this is basically an opening salvo. We will be back. We will keep you apprised each step along the way what the province chooses to do with this. As I say, this bylaw is opening the conversation with the Ministry of Long-Term Care in an effort to secure more and better housing and services in West Parry Sound. As we go forward, we're already identified as an underserviced area, and in order to meet our needs, we see no other alternative but to proceed along this path. Where we get to, yet to be determined. As I say, we'll keep you apprised as the situation develops.
Okay. Councillor McCann.
Councillor Borneman has explained things fairly well, and as I've said in the past, I know that I'm on record as probably the one who has been most difficult to sell to. Just this morning, I did receive an email from Lynn Gregory, put some of my concerns to rest. One of the things that we need to keep in mind is that the government is not crazy about privately owned operations right now, and this is certainly, as we move forward, we're moving from Belvedere. And I've been assured that we're taking the Belvedere concept, the brand, and placing it within the campus of care. So there's going to be some legacy there as far as Belvedere is concerned. As Paul has mentioned, we've outgrown the area. There's been some talk, well, why wouldn't we just buy the life leases units back and turn all those rooms into long-term care? Well, it's not that simple, and in an industry that's so highly regulated, this makes better sense to go in this direction. So as we move forward with the campus of care, as Councillor Borneman has said, it's working well in other communities. I'm just happy that we take the Belvedere brand and legacy, and that we're preserving that as we move forward.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was under the impression this is going to open the door for discussion. This isn't a determination 100%. So we're opening the door and we see what happens from here. The other thing I'm wondering, and maybe Councillor Borneman can advise, is a notice in the last part of the resolution where it talks about the town of Parry Sound requests the Ministry of Long-Term Care to waive basically the 5-year notice period in favor of early adoption of integrated long-term care, etc. And I'm just wondering, was there some research as to how stringent in the past the ministry has been in respect to that 5-year notice?
Thank you, Councillor Keith. I'm going to say that this is, I think we're in a little bit in uncharted waters. This isn't something that happens every day. As Councillor McCann alluded to, the province is moving away from private sector homes, and they've committed to fixing whatever that means, long-term care in the province. They're looking to do this, and they've passed a raft of more regulations with respect to private rooms, private washrooms, air conditioning, carpet, no carpets in homes because of spread of disease. So we're a little bit in uncharted waters. There hasn't been a whole raft of these requests made to waive that 5-year waiting period. The province has that in there in order to allow them for a longer period of planning and consideration. Our request is being made because we know that fixes are being attempted, at least in the long-term care sector, and we want to get to the front of the queue. We don't have enough beds. The beds that we do have don't meet current standards. The design of Belvedere doesn't meet current standards. So we're trying to get to the front of the line and access funding in order to improve the services and the quality of housing that are provided to seniors in this community. I know that was a long-winded roundabout way of getting there, but that's kind of the bottom line, Councillor Keith.
Well, thank you, Councillor Borneman. So what I really understood by the answer, and I understand what you've already explained to council, is that really there hasn't been a lot of research, shall we say. There hasn't been a lot of attempts in respect to this 5-year and waiving of the notice, but certainly Belvedere, the campus of care idea, you're trying the best you can to see what the opportunities are here. And that's where we are. We're throwing it out there and seeing what we can get.
The one thing I don't think I've mentioned in our conversations about this is the way the legislation is written, the ministry has to respond. We can rescind our request down the road if we choose, if we don't like where they're headed. But by making this request, the ministry is bound to respond to us. And I think that, so it kind of brings things to a head. How are you going to help us provide better housing for seniors in Parry Sound?
Councillor McCann.
Yeah, and I was just checking just to ensure, because at our last meeting, one of my concerns was that we make it clear in black and white that the beds are returned to the town of Parry Sound and not just the West Parry Sound district. And I see that is in the bylaw written out 7150. So that's good. So and as Mr. Borneman has said, it sounds like we have a way out. Believe you me, I've had a very, very hard time with this, but I guess if you can sell me on it, we're moving forward. And we've just, again, we can't stress enough that we've outgrown the Belvedere location. So we just take it one step at a time.
Okay, anything further? No? Okay, anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No, it's carried then.
Thank you.
Okay, moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Bachman, that bylaw number 2021-7161, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And that's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Bachman, second by Councillor McCann, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time passed, signed and sealed. Anyone opposed to the passing of that bylaw? No? Okay, that's carried. Prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, September the 7th, 2021 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held by a Zoom video conferencing and will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. This council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. For Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.